I am. Hello. I am out and about in Los Angeles today. Getting my notes out. Sorry about that. And hopefully you can hear okay and all that. Got a lot to cover today. Woohoo! Very exciting. So when Doug gets here, we are on the page. We're going to share into the group. Hi, Doug. So can you share into the group, please? So hopefully it won't be too noisy out here. We've done it from here before. I'm at the Heirloom Cafe, which is a really awesome cafe in Studio City, Los Angeles. And pretty popular. Just had lunch with a friend. And now here we are. Woohoo! So, yeah. Hi, Maurice. Nice to see you. Hi, Elaine. That's my hand waving to your hand. Actually, I don't need this one. So I'm assuming you can hear me. It's so funny, and I know it's wrong, but you just want to start going like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Obviously, you can hear me, or you'd be saying you can't. So I might do, what was my bridal thing that I had? As in horse, not as in wedding. Okay. Anywho, hang on. There we go. That was it. I remember now. Okay. Hi, Jeannie. Nice to see you. So we're just going to dive right in because I have a lot to cover. Lots to cover. And there is a handout today. Very exciting. I know. Good. Laugh out loud. Laugh out loud. Wahaha. We have a lot to cover. And I might, so you don't have to stare at me. I'm boring. Let me show you the neighborhood. So it's a beautiful day here in sunny LA. I was going to try to kind of go up by the Hollywooders sign or something, but didn't really have time. So anywho, so let's just talk about false endings. So, someone's shooting a commercial. Welcome to LA. Okay, anyway, so we're going to talk about false endings today. Yay. Let me make sure I can scroll. And, well, I'll tell you a little ways in how it all came about. Hi, Juliana. Is that right? Did I say that right? I was watching a movie, actually, and it kind of inspired me because it was like, when the ending came, I was so annoyed that I was like, we're going to talk about these endings. And so that inspired me to kind of do that with you guys. So, sorry, I'm being distracted. It's going to be really bad today. Squirrel! Commercial. La, la, la. Yay! I got it right. I have a little niece named Juliana, except she spells it with a G. Most adorable thing ever. So basically, let's just kind of, I'm on the wrong page. Let's just kind of dive in. So I got inspired because this ending was really bad, and we're going to talk about which movie it was and what happened in it. And so, just a little heads up, there's a lot of spoiler, anonymous. There's spoiler alerts here. And so, the other word I have a hard time saying, animatronic. Animatronic. You know why? Because my mother, I miss her very much, and she used to say aminal instead of animal. She used to switch her letters. She was a grade school teacher, I think that's why. And she thought it was funny to switch letters, and so she raised me like, no, I can't speak. That's my story. So anyway, I'm sure I need to scroll. Okay, so it got me inspired to go, you know what, endings are so important. And the other thing about endings as a reader, we're going to talk about mostly from a writer perspective today, because, hi, Simi, screen reader, yay. Because as a writer, you know, they go hand in hand. But if you know these things as a writer, they'll help if you're trying to write your screenplay. But also, they're things that you need to know as a reader when you're reading scripts. Yay, Joanne, our screen reader extraordinaire, I might add. So just, so glad I'm cracking myself up. Story of my life. Doug's always like, I can't understand you. Slow down and stop laughing. Anyway, he's very patient. Sorry, totally sidetracked now. But as a writer, you need to learn these things. And as a reader, you need to know these things, obviously, because you're judging people's screenplays. But more so, the reason I want you to, yay, Joanne, the reason I want you to know these things as a reader is so that you can make suggestions to writers. Because as a reader, yes, you might work for production companies, right, Joanne? You might work for production companies and give them advice about screenplays. But also, as a you'll work a lot with writers, and even if you are working with production companies, you will get bombarded. Once people know this is what you're doing, you're going to get bombarded with just writers asking you to read their scripts. And so you will have a lot of conversations with writers, and a lot of people, when they find out, if they do write and they find out that you're a reader, they're going to just start asking all these questions. So these are the kind of things that you can say to people of how to fix their script. Make sense? I hope that makes sense. So basically, I said false endings, which is really a fancy kind of phrase for plot twist or twist ending or surprise ending. A false ending is one you didn't expect, basically. So, and sometimes they really, really work. And I'm going to give you some examples, too, of ones that work. And I won't necessarily say what the twist is. I'll try to do not too many spoilers, other than the example of the movie I want to give that I really didn't think that worked. Yay for Joanne. I'm so excited. Yay. So, so there's false endings. This is poor Doug. Spelling is super duper important. It's actually, in this case, it's just like my grammar when I try to speak is bad. Sorry. I just had lunch with my friend and we were laughing a lot, and so now I'm a little bit goofy today. I love her. She's like fierce and yet hilarious. Anyway, so I'll give you some waving. Say hello. Hello. I don't know who that is. Endings, Duck. Okay. All right. I also used to do, some of you know this, I used to do the Can and Knott's Berry Farm. And when you do the same show 6 times a day, you develop really terrible habits because you spend most of your time trying to make your other cast members laugh, which my girlfriend, okay, I'm going to tell a really quick, totally unrelated story, but the one that I have, are there anything like these Flo Flynn? I don't know who that guy is. But so we used to do the Civic Light Opera show, so it was like, a huge stage and 10,000 people, dollars. Lots of people watching. Maybe not that many. I don't know. Big stadium. But so the audience is pretty far away, right? So and it was in San Diego, and the planes would fly over, and so you'd have to freeze. And I think I've told that story before. So the planes would fly over, and you'd have to freeze while the planes are going over, right? So we would find ways to try to make each other laugh during the freeze. And so, like, my girlfriend that I had lunch with today, she's sitting right next to me, and I blacked out my 2 front teeth with makeup, and I blacked out my 2 front teeth, and I was like, okay, during the freeze, I'm going to smile at my dance partner and make him laugh. And we're like, oh, this is going to be so great. It's going to be so funny. So then we get to the moment and like whatever, and I'm waiting for a freeze for the whole thing. Like, I hope a plane comes, someone go home. So there's a freeze. So then the plane, hey Elaine. So then the plane goes over and we freeze, and I look up at my partner and I've got my teeth blacked out, and I go, and I smile really big, and he literally goes like not even, no reaction. No. And then I look across the stage at my friend who was sat right next to me while I was preparing, and she's like totally red faced laughing like it's like okay, which made me laugh like this on stage, which is terrible. So when you do the same show like over and over again, you get these terrible habits. Anyway, okay, that was my little story for today, which is why I'm kind of goofy now, I think. I have many stories like that of when you perform like those kinds of hours where you're doing, not so much that show because it ran for a couple of weeks, but when you're doing the same show for years and years, you don't even know what number, your body just does it, so your brain's like off somewhere else. So anyway, so it didn't black out my teeth today, but yeah, I'll have to tell her I told that story, and we're still friends like 30 years later. Okay, so false endings, let's go back to that. So here are the basic things of a good, what are the elements of a good ending? One is that it's unexpected, and it doesn't necessarily have to be some big plot twist. I mean, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is unexpected, right? That was an unexpected moment in the ending. It's not like it turned everything, but it was like this, you didn't expect that to come around the corner. So, good. I'm glad. Giggling is good. We should all be giggling. My mom used to giggle nonstop. Used to make me so mad. It's not funny, Mom. Now I totally get it. And then the second thing, so it just needs to be unexpected. Something, when a movie takes you on a journey and you get to the end and you're like, oh, it's so great, right? When it works well. And the other element is that your hero, your protagonist, whomever, someone needs to have some sort of, either they need to change and learn something, or they need to overcome an obstacle, or they need to conquer, or they need, something needs to happen in your protagonist's life that changes from one thing to the next. It could actually be sad, depending on the kind of ending that you pick. And that's basically it. Unexpected. The most obvious of all what. So that's basically it. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff, but they all fall under those two categories, really. Is that it's something that's unique and unexpected, and that something happens, some kind of thing happens that makes it all move forward in a great way. Like, something, whether it's, and I don't necessarily mean happy way, but I mean in a compelling way. So those are basically the two things. And really, a really good ending has both of those things. So that's what a script should have, are both of those things. Something unexpected should happen that makes you kind of, move forward. And that's a good nickname. And then something should happen with the character. So then you can kind of, have all these other things that need to go, it needs to be compelling, and this needs to happen, it needs to be this long, and there's all kinds of formatting kind of things. But those really are what it boils down to. So how hard could that be? Super hard. And as a reader, the development teams work like a lot on the endings. That's a big topic. And so actually, when you're reading scripts, you will read far more terrible endings than you will ever see in the movie theaters. And you'll still see terrible endings in the movie theaters, but nothing like the amount of terrible endings that you will read. Sorry, but it's true. Because that's one of the things that development teams do, is work on endings. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal to, directors, actors, writers, producers. It's a big deal to distributors. The ending makes a big deal. So you get a lot of input from a lot of people of how they would like it to end. It needs, when studios are putting together their slate of films, they're trying to pick movies that have different, end with different tones and different vibes. And so how this movie ends is also going to be in relation to how another movie that they're producing ends. And so there's a huge big picture on this. So but as long as it's compelling and these things take place, they'll fit the movie into where it fits within their scheme of movies. But that just really, it's something to consider. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why are there so many bad endings? Like, what the heck is up with that? And you'll see if you start reading a lot, like I said, that is saggy middles, middles and lackluster ends, just like me. We don't want those things. So just like in your health. Okay. Look at the neighbor. I'm good. Because Saturday Night Live cast. It's not even funny. So why so many bad endings? Yes. That would be called an alternative ending. So that's another thing, is that we go down these paths of, you have alternative endings. They actually will take 200. They'll shoot more than one ending sometimes. So, but in terms of writers, why do you think there are so many bad endings? What happens to a writer that makes them write a bad ending? And so I think that there's some pretty tangible things as a writer that you can look at that will prevent you from writing a bad ending. And one of the huge things is writer's block. And this might sound weird, but it can become a real culprit in bad endings, because primarily, I think, in my never to be humble opinion, and keep in mind that all of this is just my opinion and Doug's opinion from our experience doing this, but writer's block can have a huge impact on a bad ending, because if someone has writer's block, it means part of writer's block is that you don't know where you're going. And it would be like getting in a car and driving and not having any idea. Seymour. Seymour. Ooh. Okay, I'm not going to try and push Seymour because I don't want to accidentally. I can't see the whole thing, Maurice. Sorry. Do you mean Sicaro? That movie with Benicio del Toro? Sorry. So I think that writer's block, because it'd be like getting in a car and saying, I'm going to go and I have no idea how to get there. I'm just going to drive. And, which is nice, take a Sunday drive sometimes. But if you're trying to actually, I'm going to drive to San Diego, but I'm not going to I live in Texas and I'm just going to drive. I'm not going to look to see where San Diego is in relation to where I'm at. I'm not going to look to see which freeway I should take. I'm just going to drive. And so that's, yeah, so I think if you don't know where you're going, that can spark writer's block because you don't know where you're going. So you can't write it. But I also think that fear is a big part of why some endings are bad. And this might seem sort of counterintuitive, but I think people sometimes just want to get the screenplay done, right? They just want to finish it. So they just kind of get through it, and so there's that which makes it like, pantsters. What's a pantster? Yes. Yeah, Sicaro is an interesting movie, though. And I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm going back on your movie and then I was feeling like, I can't see the second half of your comment, Maurice. I'm not sure what you felt about the ending. And I just watched it the other night because we have, as you know, we do these free things here, and then we have the Screen Readers program where people can pay for the course, and so people are analyzing different movies, and so if it's a movie I haven't seen for a while, I rewatch it. So I just watched Sicaro the other night because someone chose that one and was doing some comments on it. So anyway, but I think when you finish your screenplay too, there is this also another element of the fear thing, is that oh, well, there you go. I haven't heard of the term pantsters before. I'm learning. I love it. Because once you finish your screenplay, then what are you going to do, right? And I do think that is a really common thing. I think musicians go through it too when they finish their record. It's hard to be done. It really is hard to be done with a screenplay, which once you finish your first screenplay, you're not done. But there's that element of, it's so much, I don't know, it can be more, not easier exactly, but yes. Oh, interesting that you felt that way. 15-20 minutes of the movie was left before it should have ended. Yeah, it was an interesting movie. I totally see what you're saying about that. Oh, people right by the seat of their pants are called pantsters. That's awesome. Which some people can do it, but I still think you don't necessarily need to be an outline. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that, Joanne. So I think you can, it's a very individual thing. I think outlines can really be helpful, but I think you do need to know where you're going. You don't necessarily, some people, I'm very much I would call myself a pantster. Doug is a plotter, and so we work really well together. So I think, but we pretty much decide where we're going, and we've realized the more that we know that ending, the better that, the easier it is to write. But there's something sort of exciting, and cool about writing the screenplay, the first screenplay. Once you get to that end, rewriting isn't nearly as inspiring, typically, for most people. So a lot of people don't finish, or they don't put the kind of energy into their ending. They don't want to really end, because then that means they're going to have to try to sell that screenplay or whatever, or write a new one or whatever they're going to do. And so I think it can really, really, really hurt writers, and I think it can make it so where their endings don't really, come to fruition in the same way. And rewriting is hard. It is really hard. It's really hard because you've already gotten to the certain place to where you think, oh, this works, and to go back in, it can be very, can suck your energy to have to go back and redo things. And it can have, that's why as a reader, you want to try your best, your very, very best, to inspire people to do a good rewrite, as opposed to like, you need to fix these things. It needs to be like, think how much better it would be, or think about how you might want to add this or whatever, so that we really understand that. And when a writer sees a good coverage come back with all these great ideas, they get very excited, very, very excited. For one, what does that even mean? You mean like a horse or a car? It's not a good day for me to go off, clearly. But I think, you want to be able to, you want them to see that and be like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. I want to dive in there and redo this certain thing. And it's really about, as a reader, really getting across that you get them. You get what they're going for. You get what they want to do so that you can take it to the next level. So exactly. And I've seen, oh goodness, that brings up a good point, Doug. I've seen many times where, too many times where, in the rewriting process, especially with some producers like to trade out. Some people like to swap out writers, and so a new writer, they'll hire a new writer, and the writer will come in and they'll make all these changes, and then another writer, no, that didn't work, and they bring in a different writer and a new writer, and they just keep doing that until pretty soon someone goes, you know what we should do, and then they suggest the original thing that was the screenplay to begin with. I've seen that too many times to really comment. It's a real drag. All right, so okay, I have to show you the puppy. Oh wait, you can't see him from here. Okay, so anyway, I'll show you the puppy when he comes around this side. Because it's all about puppies and Studio City. It's gonna have a really nice. I'm glad that I ate here because the waiter. Make sure I'm not taking tables. Okay. The waiter knows us though. We eat here all the time. So I think that those are kind of some of the main reasons. And then there's a lot of other reasons why endings can stink and why endings don't work. But I really do think they all kind of come back around to those top three in that writer's block and fear, and that rewriting is hard. Like, it just comes kind of down to that. And so there's a kind of a ton of other things. Hi Judith. So it really can be, it so much of all of this. See, that's good though. You got to keep going. If it hits close to home, it's going to be better. The more close to home it is, usually the better the writing is. I hate to break it to you, but it's usually true. Write what you know works. And I mean, I've had many experiences. Super long story. I don't know how to kind of condense it, but many experiences where, and you've probably had this in your life too, where you go, you can't write this stuff, where things happen that are just so bizarre that you're just like, kind of behind the scenes in the music world. There's been many stories that try to cover it, and they just don't get it. It's really hard to write it. But yeah, so those are the things I think that really prevent endings from being good. Is just basically. Oh, gotcha. Basically, your gearhead is showing. But those are kind of the basic things. So what can you do to combat this struggle as a writer? Like, how do you get through these, and what can you do so that your endings don't, fall prey to these basic things that you're afraid to finish your screenplay, for one, and that you have writer's block, and that it's just too hard, or that you just want to kind of get through it and spit it out. You want to put a lot of love and care and attention to that ending to make sure that it really captures what you're trying to get across. So one is, like we said before, is to start with the end in mind. Definitely start with the end in mind. Know where you're going. That can really help you. I think the more that you write, the less you need to do this. But I think really, especially if you're first starting out, yeah. And then that's, I haven't gotten to that yet, but basically to put it away. So also, if you play with your characters outside of the end, so like if you write extra scenes that you're not intending to be in the movie, but you take two characters out and go put them on a date, or take two characters that don't even have any scenes together, put them together and let them talk a little bit, just write random scenes. And I think the more that you kind of can do that and play with your characters and just write random things, the better your overall thing will be, because you'll end up taking bits and pieces out of that and putting it in there. So and actually people get married to what their characters. They love their characters, and actually I'm very guilty of this, and thankfully I have Doug that goes, no, he's got to go, he's just a small part, but he's so funny, or whatever, or they, whatever, they're showing this or that. So it is like not being too married to your characters and your writing, and not being so in love with your words that you need to like have every word on the page. But if you play with your characters and you take these things out, you'll end up pulling lines or pulling bits and pieces. And you can also play with your ends. So you can write a different ending, like write an ending where the villain wins, write an ending where your hero dies, write an ending where just write a bunch of endings. And because what will happen when you do that is it opens up your mind, and then you'll be able to pick certain things from those endings that you can then put together in the ending that you choose. And it might sound counterintuitive, but it can be really fun if you just relax and let it happen. We take characters, Doug and I take characters from one script and put them in another script on a regular basis. If a character is working, we like that character. Plus, it makes the second script much easier to write because that character is already established, their voice is established in your head. So we often take a character, actually we took, and I've still told this story before, where I have a short play that's only like 5 minutes long, but this character has this like beautiful monologue that she does in this short play, and I say beautiful because I've seen this woman do it, that she took that monologue and then she's been using that monologue in monologue competitions, and she's been slaying it because the characters are totally neurotic, and this woman happens to be extremely beautiful, so you wouldn't expect her to be this neurotic. She did such a beautiful job with it that we took and wrote an entire screenplay around that character. So, and now we've got characters from that screenplay that we've pulled out and we've put into, not her, but actually it is her too. We've pulled them out and put them in a different screenplay. So in a different scenario, the names are changed and everything, but the basics of the characters are the same. It's because she's such a rich character, and we love Cheryl so much. It's her name, we don't know. Jessica's the one that's played her, but we like Cheryl so much that we're taking her out now. And she's not, what is her name in crawl space? I can't think of her name. So we pulled out her and put her in a new screenplay, and she's got different scenarios. She's a different character, but because we know her really well, we can play with her that way. So it really kind of open you up if you let your villain win, for instance. It really will help you. It will help inform you as to in crawl space. Is she still Cheryl? I can't even remember what I wrote. You're seeing a little glimpse of how Doug and I go back and forth. So it can really kind of open you up, because let's say, for instance, you write an ending where your villain wins, then when you go back to your regular ending, you have all this information about that villain that you didn't have before, why they're doing it or what they're hoping to gain, or, their backstory. And if you actually write it out, it's going to help you as a writer, and it's going to make your other screenplay just so much more. I think it is. I think you're right. It makes it much, makes it work a lot better. And then the other kind of cool thing that you can do, and that's something you should suggest to writers quite a bit, is to do a live read. Take your screenplay, take your scenes down to the local college, to the local drama, put a sign up at the library, whatever. Just get some actors, and there's plenty. You can, in LA if you live anywhere, but anywhere, your actors are everywhere. You can find a bunch of actors. You can sit around, and we've done it in my house. You can sit around a table and do a table read of your screenplay. I tend to do it where everybody's kind of facing out. I don't know, just from, I think, my directorial stuff from doing stage. And you can invite an audience when you get a little bit further along. You can invite potential investors, producers, whatever. And you can, he does name the dogs. And I name characters after people in my life, usually, just not that character is that person, but just so I can have my friends' names in movies. So then the actors can read it out loud, and then you'll hear it, and there's nothing like hearing your work out loud to see when it stinks. Trust me on that. And then also, though, the people playing them can tell you what felt real, what didn't. And then if you're really brave, and I've actually done a whole play this way where he had the basic outline of the play, and he told us who our characters were, and then we just started improvising, and he started writing it down. And then he took that home and shaped it. And that was really fascinating and really cool. And then we'd swap roles, and we just all started improvising all these different characters, and then he built it from that. And it was one of the weirdest plays I've ever done, but also one of the most interesting. And Patrick Warburton was the guy in that, and he's like a genius improver, and so Pat and I would just be like, it was really out there. And so, but he was ahead of his time as a writer, because it would really be interesting now. It'd fit kind of more into what people are doing now. But those kinds of games and things that actors do, you can do as a writer as well. Actors do all kinds of games. That's a big part of being an actor, is trying on different characters and trying different things. You should be doing that as a writer too. And I really think that those are the ways, if you approach it like an actor, and Quentin Tarantino talks about this, that he approaches his writing as an actor. And I think that's one of the reasons why his dialogue is so good. That's one of the reasons why his characters are so rich, is that he's approaching it from that perspective. He plays with those characters just like an actor does. And so I think that's something to really, really think about. And then the other thing is to walk away. Like Doug said, put it down, walk away. Go pet your dog, go for a swim, go for a jog, take a couple days, take some time off, and then come back to it. And you'll have whole new eyes on it. You can let your siblings read it if you want to get torn apart. Siblings are notoriously brutal. But it's like those are the kind of the ways that you can combat having these endings that don't work. And so I think that those are kind of the ways that you can play as a writer and make it so that all you need are those two things: something unexpected happens, and your main character has some kind of arc, change, shift, win, lose, something happens to them. So I really think, and then the final thing is, and here's the big secret, this huge secret about how to fix every screenplay, everything you've ever done, right. The big secret, right, and then when you're done writing, write some more, write stream of consciousness, write journals, write, when in doubt, write. And that is really the best way. So let's kind of go through a few. Right, turn right here so you can go right. Sorry. Oh no, there she goes again. That's what my husband will say. Oh, my son too. There she goes. So some successful twists. So then you can write exactly, Cindy, and then write, and then write. Okay, never mind. I was going to go in a whole other direction, but I won't. So then you can. So your movie doesn't have to have some like huge twist, although it's cool when they do and they work well. So like some really cool successful twists are Psycho. Kind of old school again. Oh no. Psycho, Fight Club, obviously one of the most talked about surprise endings. Sixth Sense, although someone told me that the ending of that before I went, I was like, we were in a group setting and they go, "Did you know?" And they told me, and then I was like, I said, "Oh, we're going to go see Sixth Sense tonight." And she was like, "Oh, really? Did you know that?" I was like, why would you do that? Why did you just do that? The whole room was like, oh. It was still interesting, though. See, I didn't even do it here. You've seen that Cheers episode where Frasier runs around the room telling the endings of all the movies. Rosebud, like he tells the endings. Look, I'm running with scissors. Anyway, 7, Usual Suspects, Empire Strikes Back. Luke, I'm your father. Okay, that was a spoiler. She wasn't a friend. I don't even remember who it was. It was someone I barely knew. My friends wouldn't do that. Anyway, so those are some, like surprising, great twists. And let me know if you guys know of any others, but I'm trying not to do spoilers if I can avoid it. But, movies that we know, Inglourious Bastards, like that have kind of a unique ending to them. It doesn't have to be that to be good. Yeah, well, Hitchcock in general, master storyteller, and great sense of humor about it all too. He just like the MacGuffin. It can be really. So I kind of close this with, it can be very gratifying to finish your screenplay, and it can be like, and here's what people go. Well, Maurice, all great movies with amazing. Oh, those were all great movies with amazing endings. Yes, I thought you were saying all great movies have amazing endings. I don't know that that's true, but yes, I think some romantic comedies have great endings. I think romantic comedies are super formulaic typically, but I absolutely adore the ending in Pride and Prejudice. I just I'm super so romantic. There are movies that have, and it's not some big. I think it's just his proclamation of love for her is like, have you seen him on Succession? Anyway, but there are, Primal Fear. I forgot about that one. That's a good one, Joanne. I think, yeah. So, and a lot of people felt like that about the ending of La La Land. And there are some movies where they do have you until the end, and you'll, boy, and screenplays especially. And there's all kinds of devices that people use in endings that end up not working. And so, I wanted to kind of focus more on the writing side of it today. But I really think, that's been a pretty controversial ending with La La Land. Some people really loved it, and some people didn't. It's, yeah, works for both. But, the minute you finish a screenplay and you're like, and like 2 seconds later, oh, there's a plot hole. You'll think of a plot hole. Very, very common. So I think, I just saw a video yesterday that totally did a whole thing of comparing The Matrix to Casino Royale. And the guy felt that Casino Royale had like an ending that was 40 minutes long, and he was really bagging on it and comparing it to Matrix, which is kind of interesting. But when you do finish your screenplay, whether it's a crappy ending or not, celebrate, because you are in a very small percentage. If you actually finish your screenplay, you need to celebrate. That is a small percentage of people that actually ever get to type the words fade out. Really hard to do that. So that is a huge accomplishment, and you should celebrate it and be happy and glad, and then go back and start your rewrite. So definitely take those moments of celebrating. So let me see. Someone tell me what time it is. I want to make sure I don't run over, because we have another class at 3. Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't that, Elaine. I knew it wasn't going to be that when I saw it. And, and it's interesting, as someone who did a lot of musical theater, we always, whenever they try to do a movie of a show, I mean, La La Land wasn't this, obviously, but I think my favorite part of La La Land is the opening dance sequence on the freeway. I love it. But like Chicago, I thought really, really worked. And sometimes they do musicals that just don't work on the screen, and sometimes they don't. But anyway, the movie that inspired this whole thing is not a movie that's, I don't think, very well known, probably because of these problems, is The Loft. And it's James Marsden. It's he's the biggest star. And then, he's in Star Wars, or Star Trek. His name is escaping me right now, but he's also in it. And so it's basically the premise, and there is, well, there's going to be some spoilers, but I won't totally ruin it. But the premise is basically 5 married men that have a loft that they share so they can have affairs and bring people to this loft. Which right away I'm like, okay, so I don't like any of these characters. Hey Tad, no worries, no one's ever late. So that's the premise so they each have a key, and then the loft, LOFT, like it's an apartment that they all share. And so it's a high rise in a city, and so they're sharing this apartment, and so that way they can have affairs, and they all have this. One of them is in real estate or something, so he has, he sells these things, so he reserves this room that they can all use, right? So right away, no, similar, but no, because it's a murder mystery. Because what happens is, from the first guy comes to the loft in the morning, and there's a dead woman in the bed, right? Okay. I think it's similar, but this was like, it's super gruesome. But the thing is so they go through the whole thing of, who's the woman, where'd she come from? And then, and maybe it is a remake of The Apartment. That'd be so lame. I don't think it is. I hadn't put that together, but maybe it's supposed to be. So, okay, so it's a, interesting premise, but so right away you're starting with characters that you're going to have to mark, they're going to have to be really intriguing in order to be sympathetic, because they're already kind of, rat bastards. Because, they're already have iffy morals if that's the premise of your screenplay. So that means they need to be very compelling. So they need to be Reservoir Dog compelling. So they need to have something else that compels you. Well, instead, they really tried to make them, you feel for these guys. They just, can't be faithful. Aww. So it's like, they tried to create these characters that we are going to kind of, except for kind of one, and then there's just so many subplots that are like, what's the word? Not cliche isn't the right word for it, but contrived. And so they bring these people, that's what it is. It's because they're real estate agents. I think that's kind of a leap, Joanne, that just because they're real estate agents, they cheat on their wives. But So then, things are revealed as they figure out who the woman is and which one of them killed her and how it all went down. Well, then it just gets really off the rails towards the end. And so once it is revealed what actually happened, the problem with it is, it is, well, it's not too convoluted. It's pretty easy to follow. Well, as long as you don't try to really piece it together. So so it becomes pretty convoluted in that they're desperately trying to put on these twists and stuff, and no, he's the bad guy, no, he's the bad guy, and they're all just kind of idiotic, not like idiots, like you don't like them anyway, so I didn't really care who did it, because I didn't care about any of them to begin with. So then it became, okay, if you don't care about them, then at least it needs to be intriguing while you're trying to figure it out. So, and then there were a lot of twists and lots of twists and hidden plots, but once they did reveal it all, and then instead of going like, oh, like in Sixth Sense, you go, oh, and then all of a sudden all these little moments start to piece together, and you go, oh, that's why this, and that's why that, and then you can watch it again and be like, oh, and see how it's leading up to the things, to that ending. And in this, it was like, they would not have reacted that way, knowing what the ending was. The first guy comes in the room and he's like, super surprised, and they're all surprised that this woman's there. Well, obviously they're not surprised, and then more than one is in on it, so they're all acting surprised, and it's like it just doesn't make sense. Because also, if you have a moment in your screenplay where a character behaves a certain way alone, then that, the characters behave a certain way when they're by themselves, which does not, that needs to make sense in terms of what that character knows. So if the character knows that she's dead and walks in and drops his groceries because the dead woman's there, it's like, no, you knew when you went to get the groceries that she was dead in the bed. So it's like, when we see a character alone, their reaction needs to be honest as to what they actually know. And what ends up happening in this scenario is like, I guess maybe he could have dropped the groceries because she was dead, but not as gruesomely as what he saw when he first walked in. So it's like, but every character comes in and discovers the body, where half of them knew that she was there anyway, and one of them knew what she was going to look like to begin with. So it's like they already knew information, and it can work if they're, putting on a show for other characters, which there was a lot of that. But there were also scenes where, no, wait a minute, that character is alone. They, we should see them act in a certain way. And so it really was like, I got done with that movie. It was like, oh, we need to discuss this. And it does make me even want to go back and watch it again just to point out the flaws in a way. All right, we're switching because now I can see the puppy. Can you see the puppy? Oh, maybe you can. So watch. Look at him. He's so cute. Okay. So anyway, we need dog watching. Oh, look at his little face. Okay, sorry. Little puppy moment. So I just wanted to show that, kind of talk about that a little bit. Sorry, squirrel. Because it was sort of infuriating, but I'm glad I saw it because it made me think of this and made me talk about it. And I do think that there were some compelling things that could have worked in that film, but I think in general I didn't care about the characters and so it made it less compelling. But then to have the pieces come together and have it be like, wait, what? And then it kind of all wraps up and certain people are in trouble and certain aren't, and you're like, wait, no, they should all be in trouble. They should all have some kind of repercussions, right? Yeah, pretty much, right, Maurice? And then also at the end, it is like, they did commit crimes and people aren't really paying for the crime that they committed. Like, it's just kind of strange. And they do a whole kind of homophobic thing that's weird, and it's just like the whole thing is kind of a mess. And honestly, this is terrible. I should know who wrote it, but I don't. So that's basically was the inspiration for this whole thing. And it was good acting. The actors are good. They're solid actors, and I think there was some good stuff about it. But I really wanted to kind of use that as an example. It's a good one to look at in terms of seeing what maybe could have made this puppy is just killing me. When you feel gypped at an ending, it's really a drag, right? Because that's what, and I read this really great article, maybe if I can find it, I'll post it again, where the guy goes, they're moving pictures, they're supposed to move me. And I love that
that comment, and he was talking about how, because people say, oh, it's a slice of life and you want it to be real and whatever. He goes, no, we go to movies because we want to escape. And I think it's a combination of both, but I think people do, not necessarily, they want, endings that are good because they want to be moved, whether it's happy, sad, whatever, but they want it to be something different from our mundane lives. That's the whole point. That's why we're going. So even if you do have a movie that's a slice of life, you want it to be something that people relate to. And so that's what makes movies work. And that's, kind of what make endings work. And we could go down a whole another path. And for you screen readers, we are going to go down another path a little bit different than this. But of all kinds of alternative endings and just alternate endings and just all kinds. We could talk about endings a lot, but I wanted to just kind of give the basic stuff so that you can get started in either when you're writing screenplays or you're reading screenplays. You have kind of the basic things that you can give to people. And I had a producer who finally, super long story, but she decided that she was going to write the ending, and so she wrote this, or she was going to write a screenplay, and she was someone, it was interesting because she was someone who worked through a lot of writers, didn't value writers very much, and so when she decided to write it, I was like, right on. I wanted to, here we go. I was so excited to see her actually face the blank page, because we have a consultant course as well where we're teaching people how to help writers as a consultant. And the very first thing we make them do is face the blank page. You need to know what that's like to really be a good consultant, in my opinion. And you don't necessarily have to write a screenplay, but you need to know what that's like to face and trying to be writing a screenplay. And so she wrote the screenplay, and then she did the whole "it was all a dream" twist. And so she showed me the coverage she sent out for coverage, and she got these coverages back that were scathing because they loved it up until, kind of act 3, and then they just hated it, hated it. And so she got terrible scores. And so she was really upset. And so she kind of had a new understanding of what it's all about then. It was a really interesting moment. And so I sat down with her as a consultant and said, I'd been reading scripts for her for years, and then she had hired me on some writing projects, and we'd just done a lot together. And so I was able to go, but look, the reason they hate it is because you had them. And that's what ends up happening. If they really hate it, it means they were with you. That's a good thing. They were with you. And so if you find a screenplay where it's really great for the first half or whatever, or even that has some kind of lame twist at the end, you can say to the writer, look, the reason people are hating this is because they love it and you're gypping them. As opposed to love and hate is way better than indifference. And that's what you're trying to get. You want either poor, not poor, because that's usually has to do with structure and stuff, but you want them to have pretty scathing things about this. They lost me here. If someone reacts passionately to your work, that's a good thing. It just means you need to tweak and move into the right. It means that you're getting them. You're sparking an emotion, and that's really what it's all about. So then it's about kind of figuring out how to manipulate that in a better way. So I hope that is inspiring and makes sense, because people get so upset when people hate their work, but love or hate. And the play that I talked about where we improv'd it, the critics hated it or loved it. It was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, or this thing was a piece of crap that didn't make any sense. So what this author did, which was brilliant, is he made a big poster that said, critics love it, critics hate it, and put all the quotes about how awful it was and how great it was. And so it sold out because people wanted to see, what is this that's sparking this controversy? So, and all my friends, I had many friends that said, I didn't get it, which was a common response to it because it was so out there. But it was, you want that kind of reaction. So I made it through, stopped laughing, got serious. So it's such a beautiful, perfect puppy day, and I'm going to show the puppy as we go out. So does anybody have any questions or more thoughts or anything? Let me see if I have what's next week. I think I have it with me. I think it's on this one. We will be doing a new topic, and if you have topics that you'd like us to talk about, just let us know, and we will kind of take the most popular ones. We get these topics. This one I got from watching The Loft, but in general, we take these topics from, no, I don't think it's this one that I have it. We take these topics from your questions that you answer. So boredom is not what you're shooting for. No, it's not this one. Sorry, I don't have it here. So we will post what the next topic is. Thought we did. No. Let me see what's this one. We will post what the next topic is soon. And also there is a handout. So I did type all this up for you. so that you would have it and could refer back to it. So, one more laugh. Give us a laugh. Okay, here's my favorite. Oh, my favorite joke doesn't work though without someone answering. Okay, how about puppies? Okay, one more puppy. Like, wait, there's puppies. There's a puppy. Okay. That makes me laugh. Oh my gosh. I'm a huge dog person and a cat person and an animal person in general. Okay, that's an LA puppy. That's a movie star puppy, right? Okay, guys. So you guys are so awesome. Thank you for putting up for my with my wackiness, and I hope that helps. And look for the handout. I will post the link to that, and we will see you next week. Keep an eye out. Our times might change. We do this in relation to the class that we do with screen readers, and we do it, so that it corresponds with them. Cool? You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Super fun. And now I'm going to end it. Oh, something unexpected. Oh, I haven't done funny hats. You're so good, Elaine. You have a blessed day too as well. Wait, let me see if I can find the funny. We used to do this all the time, where we ended every time with a funny hat, because honestly, I really do feel like, here we go. It's this one. I really do feel like you need to play, and that's, there's music. Oh, yeah, no, we don't. I like this one. There we go. Lame. So it's kind of, the Blues Brothers. So, because you should be playing, and life is about playing, right? And does it go away when I turn? All right, you guys, funny hat day, and we will see you next week. Now I don't know how to get out of here. So ridiculous. I should black out my teeth next time. And then the people that didn't see this week will be like, okay, she's completely lost it. Why am I even on here? Bye, you guys. We'll talk to you next week. We'll see you next week.